welcome to another episode of Focal Point. Of course, you know that Focal Point is a TV show where we interact with prominent Nigerians on issues around politics, education, health, even religion. My name is Nancy Okafor. You're welcome to today's show. And I'm here today with a respected honorable member, Honorable Sam Onuigbo. Welcome, sir.
Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you. Because of the viewers, please want you to introduce yourself.
I'm Representative Samuel Ifeanyi Onuigbo. I represent the good people of Great Iguano, North Omoya South Federal Constituency. I'm from Abia State.
Welcome, sir. Today we'll be looking at issues around climate change.
Okay.
You sponsored a bill in 2021, and the bill was passed. Please, sir, what motivated you to sponsor the bill on climate change?
Okay, thank you very much indeed. Climate change is a life issue that affects individuals, affects communities, and it also affects people's means of livelihood. In affecting individuals and communities, I can take my community as a good example. In my community, Ibere, in Iguano local government area, we have 6 active erosion sites. And if you move around the other parts of Ibere, it has devastated a very, very many areas. If you also go to a place like Saka, it has cut some communities into 2, such that they can no longer access their farmlands. Then if you go to a place like Omuawa, in Omuawa South, erosion has devastated the whole area. And in fact, one is so threatening that I had to move 2 motions here. During my first term, that's the first time I came to the National Assembly, that's 8th Assembly, and also in the 9th Assembly. And in that motion, I specifically requested the federal government to intervene in tackling the menace. It's not just erosion alone. This one is that the erosion has taken a significant chunk of the area, covering where they have petroleum pipelines. So the danger is that if this is not handled well, if it collapses, it has the potential of causing fire and killing people. So you can see the mixed bag. Then if you go to the coastal areas, you discover that climate change through coastal erosion has wiped out the areas where people used to keep their canoes and all that. We're not even talking about the pollution. You saw what happened in Rivers State lately through suits. All these are climate change based. And of course, if you go to the northern part of the country, the impacts of climate change leading to desertification, drought, and of course, the loss of means of livelihood. All these have even combined to create security challenges which we are experiencing, with the headers from our clashes. So there are many reasons that influence my decision to sponsor the bill.
Okay, thank you, sir. I want to know if there are challenges you encountered while sponsoring the bill. Are there people that said, no, this cannot happen? What are the challenges you encountered?
Well, the challenges were varied and multifaceted because this had earlier been, sponsored by people in the 6th Assembly.
Okay.
And it did not move to the point of getting an asset. In the 7th Assembly, there was also a similar challenge. But some of the challenges actually came from bureaucrats who would always provide different views about what was involved based on their interests.
Okay.
And I think even in the 7th Assembly, the then President Goodluck, was about assenting to the bill, but then people still provided their own perspectives that created confusion, and of course, he did not sign. So when I came in the 8th Assembly, I decided to sponsor the climate change bill. And of course, similar challenges are actually occurred because we saw people who, ganged up, came from different angles, presented their own views in a manner that it was intended to destroy, and they were successful, in stopping the bill. So when I came back, when by the grace of God I was re-elected in the 9th Assembly, I moved forward to sponsor the bill. But then at that point, I then widened our consultations and collaborations to involve significant portions of the executive and to see if we could eliminate those established bottlenecks, that were actually injurious to the process. So that's what I did. And in doing that, I had to solicit the support of the Speaker of the House of Representatives, His Excellency Right Honorable Afemi Bajabiamila. And then we also crossed over to the Senate. And similarly, I had to meet the Minister of State for Environment, Chief Sharon Ikazo, who came on board strongly. And of course, we went up to the Minister of Justice, Abubakar Malami, SNN. And after discussing with him and explaining what was involved, he took him on board and requested that I should make a letter for nominations for him to be able to nominate people to work with us, in redrafting the bill and making sure that some of those challenges that Mr. President raised were eliminated. That's what. And then the Minister of Environment to ensure that they were on board to eliminate what, had indeed occurred in the past unsuccessful attempts where people would wait until the last minute and then they would come up with something to scuttle the effort. So Chief Sharon Ikazo came on board, made nominations too. So with these nominations, I worked with the Speaker of the House and suggested to him the need to set up a technical review committee. And he approved that. I chaired the technical review committee, and we had somebody like Professor Chuso Kereke, who is a global climate change expert, and then the technical, providing technical details. And then we were Dr. Tua and Nemeka, who was secretary of the committee. So at the end of the day, we had our job, and then we now had the opportunity to work with the people from justice, people from environment, and other stakeholders to ensure that we were not going to face the problem that the bill had suffered in the past. And that's how we were able to get that done. And at the end of the day, we worked together. I brought it in to the House. The House reviewed it, passed it, and worked on Committee of the Whole. And then we were able to transmit that quickly to the Senate, and the Senate came on board speedily and also passed it. So, and the bureaucracy was fantastic because they worked on it expeditiously and ensured that it was transmitted to Mr. President for assent. It was there, it was in the presidency before we went for COP26. And at COP26, Mr. President made a profound declaration that we're going to attain net zero in 2060. So added to that were other things that came out in terms of how other nations are moving speedily, ferociously towards transiting, and how they're also using renewable energy. And of course, it dawned on us that this is something that is very, very important. I recall that when I gave a lecture at the Scottish Parliament in early May, I told them, we have gas. We want to use our gas as transition fuel. We're not going to transit into disaster. and all that. So fortunately, after the COP26 in Glasgow, Mr. President assented to the bill on the 18th of November 2021 to make it an act of the National Assembly, one of the laws in the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
Oh, that's beautiful. So we want to also know the benefits. What are the benefits? How does it benefit Nigerians?
Thank you. The benefits are immense, and they are going to come in different forms. In fact, it's difficult to quantify the benefits, but I'll probably just mention one or two.
Okay.
I talked about the suit in Port Harcourt.
Yes.
That's health. It's affecting a lot of people, but they truly didn't know until they started seeing their white cloth outside covered with dark substance. So that dark substance, when inhaled, is poisonous to health. That's why the World Health Organization, I think they've done a number of researches and came up with the fact that globally, climate change related challenges account for close to between 7 to 8 million deaths. But unless you're able to establish the link, you wouldn't just know by sitting down and say, okay, this man has died. That's one. Two, if we're able to handle it very well, we'll now benefit from something like renewable energy, where you reduce pollution. Pollution leads to health challenges. I think you are seeing the link.
Yes.
Then you probably ask yourself, why is it that we have the National Security Advisor as a member of the council? Because the National Council on Climate Change will be chaired by Mr. President, and in his absence, the Vice President. And then you now have members of several ministries as ministers to be members of the council. And then you have the private sector, you have the youths, you have women. All these people are going to be members of the council. But the question I ask, why do you have the National Security Advisor as a member of the council? It is because there is a serious security implication associated with climate change. I think the one that readily comes to mind is what I just talked about, what we refer to as the Sahel Challenge. The Sahel Challenge is you are going to the areas that we refer to as the Sahel region, which even the African Union recognized and came up with the Great Green Wall, covering the Sahel area that is being devastated by desert, drought. And when desert and drought combine, they degrade the environment, degrade the area where you can farm. And what follows is forced migration. People now live there and go to where they can find, food or means of livelihood.
Yeah.
But when you leave your abode and migrate, you are going to meet people who are already occupying that place.
Yes.
And if you're not careful, the next thing you will harvest is crisis. Remember, herders, farmers.
Okay.
So these things are going to be taken care of. Climate smart agriculture, where you can do, not you are doing less, but you are going to do your agriculture in such a way that you have your system still protected, your forest still protected, your environment still protected, but you are still producing enough to feed the people. And then we are listening to the benefits.
Yes.
And then you are going to apply something like your gas in such a way that it's going to benefit the entire populace, because you are doing it in a structured manner. Also, we provided in the art, part 7 of that art, talking about what we call nature-based, solutions. And all these things are that you have to protect the forest. The government has the Great Green Wall, where last time Mr. President talked about planting over 25 million trees. Why are you bothering to plant trees if you don't need them to protect the environment and secure the area where you can farm? So this nature-based solution, you have something like reduction or reducing emissions from deforestation and forest degradation. That all these things are contained in the art to make sure that we have a place that everyone is protected, the earth is protected, you are doing your farming. In fact, you are doing things in a sustainable way. Not that you do and destroy everywhere and go away. And then you have nowhere to run to. So this is why this is of immense benefit. But let me even bring it closer. If you are talking about those in the bureaucracy, contained in that act, I think section 22, is the fact that every MDA, ministry, department, and agency must have a climate change desk to be chaired or to be superintended by someone who is of a directorate cadre.
Okay.
You get that?
Yes, sir.
So what that means truly is that it's going to create employment. The other day when I was given an award at the University of Nigeria Soccer, and I was talking to people in environmental departments and all that, very young people, I told them job is being created so that you find something to do quickly. And if you have a department that is people by people who studied this and who are going to work on attaining green budget, that is ensuring that you have provisions in the climate change, provisions in the budget that cover appropriate issues of climate change. Make sure money is provided. Anybody who hates that as a director of the climate change unit or department, that's a job for him and that's a job for those who assist him. That is, a point. Then we are going to apply our resources much more productively. Not that you are doing things and you don't know how you are using them. I've also talked about health. In our villages, people use firewood and all that to cook. But nobody has bothered to know how the firewood has been affecting their health over time. So much, and then employment. Okay, let me give you an instance. When President Barack Obama came to COP26, he said they created, and when he started with climate change, they invested about 90 million, around 1989. But today, that thing has created over 3 million employments, more than what you get from, fossil fuel industry. So these things will benefit from them as we go forward. The advantages, they add to so much, for us to begin even to talk about them one by one. So Nigeria will surely benefit in very many ways.
Okay, sir.
Yeah.
As the Vice President, Globe Africa, and then the #1 man, Globe Nigeria, how has the effects of climate change be taken internationally?
I'm the Vice President Africa of Globe International, and that's what that makes me is the #1 member of Globe in the continent. I'm also the President of Globe Nigeria. Similarly, I'm also the Chairman of Climate Parliament, which is also another international body that has to do with this. But in terms of how climate change has been taken, you say internationally, it's so much now. So much, because I've talked about a number of things here. During COP26 in Glasgow, so many things happened that were not there before. One, the US Treasury Secretary was there live. And she opened her mouth and said, this is the first time a US Treasury Secretary has attended a COP. Two, there are what you call the Global Finance Group on Climate Change. This one, they came out fully when we were there in COP26. And they have found out how private sector has now invested heavily, and some of them are coming on board. And that's why the rate of transition is very fast. So climate change has really touched the world, and the world is responding. Because if you check the number of cyclones, the heat wave, the fires, and all that, if we don't move fast, climate change has really devastated the world. And I don't know if anyone is still wondering about that. So in terms of the kind of international response, it's been massive, and it's going to be sustained. I can tell it's massive. It's going to be sustained because people are coming from different angles, bringing. If you go to a place like Saudi Arabia, you go to Morocco. I'm talking of, if you like, you can call them sub-Saharan nations. You see what they have done with solar. If you go to India, it is the same. If you go to China, it is the same. So the world is moving. The world is investing. The world is transiting. That's why investment in electric car, electric engines, and so many other things is on a very, very, very high level, because the world wants to move away from the use of fossil fuel because it's not healthy. So the world is actually working to benefit and to preserve the earth for generations that are coming behind us.
I want to, at this point, say a very big congratulations with that. I also want to know if you got some recognitions and awards for sponsoring the bill.
Yes. They say an award is a tonic that is intended to make you to do much more.
Okay.
In terms of awards, by the grace of God, yes, I've received some awards and recognition of what God has used me and others to do in ensuring that this bill got through. And of course, we must also acknowledge Mr. President, who assented to the bill without allowing to, end up on the grave side like his predecessors.
Okay.
So, in the form of awards, yes, awards have been tumbling in, commendations have been tumbling in. I've received commendations from international organizations, from the global legislators on balance, global legislators organization on balanced environment, which is GLOBE. I also received from Climate Parliament letters of commendation. I received the award from the National Assembly Press Corps, which was presented to me by the Speaker of the House of Representatives, His Excellency, Right Honorable Femi Bajabiamila. Similarly, I've received awards, so many of them, from the climate change community, who gave me an award as a climate champion. There are so many of them. I've received also an award from the Nnamdi Azikiwe University, Awka, the Climate Change Center there. Got that in February. I've also received an award from the University of Nigeria and Soccer. That I got at this March. And of course, by the grace of God, I've also been nominated for an award by the National Union, Nigerian Union of Journalists, NUJ, the national body, Nigerian Union. So awards continue to come. There are so many of them that have been coming, locally and internationally. Yes, awards are supposed to serve as a tonic to get you to do more. That's why we welcome it. And on the other hand, we just worked, to make life better, to improve the climate for everyone.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. Right now, we're going to change the pattern of the discussion.
Okay.
I want to look at politics now. 2023 is around the corner. Do you have another political ambition or interest?
Before I ran for office,
Okay.
in 2014, I was actually started getting ready in 2013. I moved to over 285 homes in Onuigbo to do consultation. And what it afforded me was the opportunity to be able to engage stakeholders and say that I would like to represent the great federal constituency. And in doing that, I'm going to represent them in a manner that they had never seen before. They listened to me. A good number of them believed me and turned around and encouraged me to go ahead and run, because I went back memory lane to tell them what I was able to do without being in politics. In my community, we used to trek 6 kilometers to the nearest secondary school and 6 kilometers back. But when I graduated way back in 1983, I said, well, if I had the opportunity, the first thing I would like to do is to end the suffering of young people who had to trek 12 kilometers in a day in search of secondary school education. And as far back as 2001, I was able to bring the US ambassador to my village, a remote village. And he was accompanied by the then governor, Joseph Khan. And apart from commissioning a block of classrooms that I facilitated with the US government, I was able to get the ambassador to lay the foundation of a secondary school, which we appropriately named the Ambassador's College. And that way we have ended that. So one was able to do all that and so many other things long before now. And our community meeting, I used to go along, attending the meeting of our women. I've been doing that since the year 2000. And I even just finished with one not long ago, sometime last year. So one has been in community work. And when you do this work and people appreciate them, they motivate you. So on whether I have any future political aspiration, what I'm able to do, if it is enough to motivate the people to say, okay, we would like you to run for office, it is then you now begin to make decisions about whether you are running or not. But it's usually within the people. If they appreciate what you are doing, they will naturally encourage you to run.
Are we going to leave that to the people?
Yeah, they have always, they are the ones who decide. When we say that, in those days when we used to write something, we would say that the most important office is the office of the citizen. People come around and say, what do they mean by that? What you tell is office of the citizen? It is the office of the citizen that determines who becomes a councillor, who becomes a local government chairman, who becomes a House of Assembly member, who becomes a governor, a House of Reps member, a senator, and Mr. President, because it's the citizens that get together to vote. And now that we have passed, the Electoral Act Amendment Bill, and it's been assented to by Mr. President, where electronic transmission of results will count, there's no doubt that the office of the citizen has even been further enhanced. So if you say you are leaving it to the people, you are not making any mistake.
Okay, but at least you have where you are sparing, an office you are sparing.
Okay, let me give you another explanation. I told them, anytime I go to campaign, I'll tell them that anyone who is you are in Abuja, you are in Onuigbo, you are in Abakaliki as governor, and this, you are there on borrowed wings.
Okay.
Because it is every member that comes to place his thumb. Each thumb is a feeder. And when the feeders are added up, they become wings. And when you get the few wings, you can now fly to any office. So if the people fail to lend you their feeders through their thumb, you cannot fly to any office. You rest with the people. You rest with the office of the citizens.
Okay, let's go back to the roots as Umuahia Entrepreneur Road that you attracted.
Yes.
Can you tell us how you feel about it, and then how far the projects have gone?
Okay, thank you very much. The Umuahia Ekote Federal Road is dear to my heart. And I'm happy that you asked this question. I am happy that by the special grace of God, work is going on, on that road right now as we speak. And the reason why I am very happy about it is that I started efforts about getting that road to be, reasonably motorable on the 14th of June 2016. And after my meeting with the minister, he was then Minister of Works, Minister of Power, Works and Housing, His Excellency Babatunde Raji Fashola, SAN. I was able to explain to him how devastated the road was, because there were so many fell sections that even trucks could not, pass through them. So he, after watching the pictures that I presented and a number of other things that I came along with, agreed with me that the road needed to be fixed. Because in my presentation, I made it clear, and I presented pictorial evidence that the road had indeed collapsed. Because trucks that used to convey items from Calabar Port, Dangote Cement, Niger Cement, Calabar Cement, oil prospecting and oil servicing equipment. They could no longer pass through there. So you can see that it's a very important road. So the minister then agreed. And in fact, there and then, he called his most senior engineer, Engineer Baladan Shehu, who has now retired, to come and take notes, to be able to capture exactly what was being said. And he told Baladan Shehu to write that one, the ministry would intervene through palliative work, and then after that, embark on total reconstruction of the road. Because I made the point that the government had to do away with the annual ritual of palliative works. So, and that's how we went. And the minister, out of the threatency, said one was that FEMA should be invited to move in quickly and carry out palliative work. Then two, it should be written black and white that the government was committed to the total reconstruction of the road as I requested. And then thirdly, that this honorable member should be commended for having the interests of his constituency at heart. So we followed through right from that 2016 until one, the palliative work was done we started in December 16th. And then two, that was finished in 2017. And then subsequently, in early 2019, the road was awarded for total reconstruction. However, due to paucity of funds, the contractor could not continue. And they left site. But I had to, by the grace of God, continue with the pressure. And the minister kindly represented a matter at the Federal Executive Council, where they passed it that the road should now be moved to be funded by the NNPC Road Task Credit Scheme.
Wow. Okay.
And that is how it came about. And we are happy today that they have returned to site and work is ongoing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I want to say a very big thank you to you for being on this show. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, sir. My dear viewers, na focal point. In other words, this is where we'll be rounding up this discussion. Thank you very much. Don't forget to subscribe on all our social media platforms. We are there on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram. We also have our website. If you are interested in knowing what is happening around you, subscribe and then turn on the notification button to get all of our news items. questions. Thank you very much. See you next time. Bye.